The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. Well, I'm back from Florida. You know, there's something I want to talk to you about. Okay, this came up on Activist Post. IMF decashing, soft selling, financial enslavement. And what it is, you can download this called the Macroeconomics of Decashing, IMF working paper. And you know, basically they're talking about working towards a cashless society. It's not like it's the first time this has come up. As you know, we're moving away from cash, more towards cards and chips. So what they're describing in this document is how they can work towards a cashless society and why they would want to do this. And of course people are worried because if you're a Christian, you know that the Bible says down the road we'll all have the mark of the beast in your right hand or your forehead. In cashless society, so people take this to mean we're probably going to have an implantable microchip replacing currency. Personally, I do believe that. But when you see a document like this, I guess the question is, how close are we to this microchipped cashless society? And the concern is whether this is heralding, you know, the end times. Decashing is defined as a gradual phasing out of currency from circulation and its replacement with convertible deposits. Well, yes, of course, it's not going to happen overnight. So here they have created a framework. They say this paper is not meant to take a view in favor of or against decashing in the ongoing debate, because of course there is a big debate about it. So the paper is about how to implement this. I don't really want to get so much into the details of it. I think, you know, there are people whose job it is to just analyze this kind of stuff and figure out how to implement it. We already know that they're doing that. But the concern is this something that could actually happen anytime soon? Before you get the microchip in your hand, you're going to have the cashless society. That's the way it's going to have to work. So how close could we even be to having a cashless society? That's what I'm going to look at. But here's another part of this whole thing. Swedish company Epicenter implants microchips into employees. And when, you know, on one hand, the globalists are talking about having a cashless society, and on the other hand, you have companies in Europe implanting their employees. You kind of get the picture that, well, maybe the apocalypse is right around the corner. And the thing is, these microchips have been around actually for a very long time. You know, the first time I heard about this was back in the 90s. It was like right around when I was becoming Christian, and at the time I had a friend who was really into Jack Van Impe. And Jack Van Impe kept talking about how, like, you know, the end times is here. He was saying that the UN was the beast with all the heads. And then later people were saying, no, it's not the UN, it's the EU. Now the EU is kind of breaking apart. So was one of those the beast? We don't really know. Jack Van Impe was talking about the microchip, the size of a grain of rice. I remember having this conversation with a guy when I was working in this bar, and I was telling him, yeah, they've got this microchip. So I remember this because this was like in 1993? Long time ago. And at the time we already felt like, well, this thing is here and any time now it's going to happen. But over the years I've come to realize that there's a lot of groundwork and infrastructure that needs to be laid before these things happen, and that things are going to happen in a biblical order. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Somebody is talking about cashless society. They've got a microchip. They've had it for a long time. Someone's using it. Does that mean that we're really, really close? I mean, I agree that we're closer than we've ever been, but does this mean that it's really just around the corner? So April 4, 2017, a Swedish company is in the news for microchipping its employees. Here's an article from 2015. Swedish company implants microchips in its staff, which lets them use the photocopier and pay in the canteen. And you know what? It's the same company. So it's not really news. I mean, they've been doing this for a couple of years. And they're not the only ones. There were some companies in America. There were even some nightclubs that would give their VIP patrons a chip. There were people who volunteered to have it put in them for medical reasons. There's like a chip that keeps all your info, medical info, so if you get in an accident, they just scan you. I mean, this stuff has been around for a while. Cashless society, microchips, how close are we really? You know, I get a little bit of a tip from this. I mean, this is the way I look at it. It's called the UN e-government readiness survey, or readiness project. So what is e-government? I mean, according to the UN, it is service online that gives people access to government services. It could be like applying for a license or doing your taxes or whatever it is, that you can do it without paper. It's supposed to be like a green thing. So that people can do all this online. But by looking at this and looking at the index and how close different countries are, you can tell something about the level of infrastructure they have in terms of like a computerized network that could cover the whole country. Because if you're going to have microchips in a cashless society, you're going to have this infrastructure. You're going to have a computerized system that reaches everywhere and that everyone is hooked into. So the UN e-Government Survey 2016, there's the e-Government Development Index, top 10 countries, and there's a list here. At the top are the UK, Australia, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Finland, Sweden, Netherlands, New Zealand, Denmark, and France. And then you have the e-Participation Index, top 11 countries. UK, Japan, Australia, Republic of Korea, Netherlands, New Zealand, Spain, Singapore, Canada, Italy, and Finland. America's not even on there. Canada is, but America's not even in the top 10. So this tells you that these countries are pretty technologically advanced and that their government is hooked up into technology that reaches the population. But if you look at the rest of the list, you'll see that some of them have an extremely low index. But when you look at this and you see how many countries have somewhere from a middle to a low index, it becomes kind of obvious that not the whole world is so technologically advanced that their whole population would be connected to this kind of a network, not even just for accessing government services, let alone for, you know, a cashless society or tracking. And if you look at this from UNICEF, the births of nearly 1/4 of the global population of children under 5 have never been registered. Just the children, never mind the adults, but 1/4 of the children, their births aren't even registered. Like, we live in a place where it's pretty high tech. The tracking, there's some tracking. I mean, they know where you're going. Like, we've got GPS in our phones, we've got phone records, we've got Echelon listening in or keeping track of what you downloaded. You've got GPS on your car, your births are registered. I mean, you know, you got a social insurance number. They know where you work. They know where you play. They know where you shop. They know where you pretty much do everything. Like, you can track people. And everyone has their birth registered. Everyone has an ID card. Pretty much everyone has a bank account, except for like a few hermits out there. But, you know, to function in our society, you have to have all that. You have to be hooked into the machine. And that's our reality, but that's not everyone's reality. When you look at these statistics and figures from the rest of the world, you'll see that a large part of the world is not anywhere near ready for a cashless society or a microchip. So this tells me that, you know, it's coming, but it's not here yet. And all this tells me personally is that it backs up what the Bible says. Cashless society, microchip, world government could have never been possible before. It is possible now. It's becoming more possible because of technology. Although the whole world isn't ready for it yet, but this is showing that what the Bible outlines, how could they have known 2,000 years ago what our world would be like today? And yet what the Bible says matches up with what we're seeing now. Okay, so bottom line, like, the Bible's accurate, and yeah, we're in that close to the end times, but I don't think we're right there yet. And you know, it's just like in any other day of your life, you just have to put your trust in God. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think, and thanks for giving me a thumbs up and for sharing the video, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.